Joshua! Wow! Anthony Joshua! In an unbelievable round here!
I am the greatest.
Roshid, I want your heart. I want to eat his children. Praise be to Allah.
It's showtime!
Cool. Hello and welcome back to the VAVEL Boxing podcast. Today we're looking ahead to the huge fights that are coming this Saturday night, and also looking ahead to a big heavyweight fight on the Friday night as well. But obviously the big fights this weekend, the headlining fights are Joyce versus Daniel Dubois, and of course the legendary fighters coming back of Roy Jones Jr. and Mike Tyson, a fight that no one really saw coming, but it seems to be it's one that's captivating a lot of boxing fans around the world. Even if people don't agree with it, people are going to watch it anyway. So we're going to talk about it. But first, we're going to jump straight in with the huge British clash, a huge heavyweight clash that has big ramifications for the future. It's Joyce versus Daniel Dubois. Just to set the scene a little bit, Joyce is 11-0 with 10 knockouts, and Daniel Dubois is the fast rising heavyweight who has 15 wins with 14 coming by way of knockout. To jump straight in with this fight, how big a British fight is this, Leif?
I think this is probably the biggest fight of the year, British-wise. Two very similar matched heavyweights. To be honest, I couldn't tell you which way it's going to go. It's not going to go the distance. It's going to end emphatic. I mean, British, Commonwealth, European, and WBC silver heavyweight title on the line. I don't think the titles matter. It's a lot to do with pride and going forward, who's going to be the next Anthony Joshua or the next Tyson Fury. It's going to be either one of these, or you could argue Fabio Wardley, when we spoke about the other day. I can't wait for this one. This one I've been waiting for a long time, and it's very split. If you look at Twitter, the influential boxing voices on Twitter, they're very split, 50-50. Some are saying Joyce KO. Some are saying Dubois KO. What about you, David? I mean, I don't know how this one's going to go. It could go either way.
I agree with you, mate. It's a really tight fight, but as you said, I do expect it to end in the distance. They can both be punched, and I think there's questions to be asked whether they can take a big strike of a heavyweight. I think it's an interesting clash. I think maybe factors that for me might favour Joyce is the experience, his amateur pedigree. He's got a long amateur career, fought some good fighters, whereas Dubois sort of jumped straight into the heavyweight scene more like. But it's really hard to tell which way it's going to go, but I'm expecting fireworks on Saturday.
Is it as simple as Dubois early and Joyce late, David? Because people talk about that a lot, and I can see the reasons behind them. Obviously, Daniel has that power, and it's very heavy-handed, but he's put a lot of opponents to sleep so far. And obviously, Joyce has got that experience, and everyone knows him as a very tough guy who comes forward, and it's almost as if an unstoppable force meets an immovable object. Do you think it's as simple as Joyce late or Daniel early?
If it did go late, I would fancy Joyce, but it really is hard to tell. The amateur game is completely different to the heavyweights. I feel like Dubois, for me, hit slightly harder. A really big puncher. But as you said, Joyce is very tough. The way you try to look at it is the opponents they've fought. And I'd argue Joyce has been in slightly harder fights with Brian Jennings and stuff like that. But it's so close to call, to be honest. I'd maybe edge Joyce on experience, but it's really tough to say.
How about as a factor that people do talk about a lot, Leif, is maybe Joyce, the lack of head movement, or maybe someone who you think if he comes up against someone like Daniel, he's a bit easy to hit, and he might take a lot of punishment.
I mean, well, it comes with Dubois' style, really. I mean, he's explosive from the get-go. I feel like Joyce might understand that. He would have watched a lot of footage, and he would have. I mean, his resume, for example, Dubois, as I'm looking here, he went the distance with Kevin Johnson, and other than that, he hadn't gone past 5 rounds. So I feel like Head movement, I'm not sure would be a big factor. I feel like Joyce will use his amateur pedigree, his boxing ability, and take it to the later rounds. And then I know that Dubois' game plan is just going to be get him out there early. Statement victory for Dubois, really. And I feel like Joyce will be the more educated fighter on the night.
I mean, obviously Joyce is a much older fighter, but everyone talks about him as being early in his career, even at 34, 35, which is quite crazy to think. But I feel like a win here for a loss here for Joe is a lot worse than a loss for Daniel.
Totally agree with that. Yeah, Joyce. We were saying about his experience, but I think his quest to go on and win gold medals and world championships and stuff like that. And I think if he would have won one earlier, he would have turned pro much earlier. But he went to 2016. Unfortunately, got the silver against Tony Yoka. But I think, yeah, perhaps it would be more important for Joyce to get the win. I think Daniel Dubois can bounce back easily. He's taken his career quite slow. He's been built up in steady fights. For Joyce, the time's running out now, isn't it? He's getting on. Obviously, he still looks like he's got a few years, and I think he can make a statement to go and win a world title one day maybe, but I think it's vital for Joyce to win. I think Dubois will bounce back, but I'm still not sure which way it will go.
In terms of the future and the ramifications, I mean, you said before that there's a lot on the line in terms of belts and the future as well. Daniel's ranked second in the WBO rankings, which is quite crazy to think, considering he's not really fought anyone in the top 10, really. I'm not sure how he's got to that position with boxing politics and all that, but he is, behind Usyk, who is a mandatory challenger to Anthony Joshua. And if Joshua fights Fury next, it could see him give up that belt, and the fight being the winner of Joe Joyce and Daniel Dubois against Usyk, potentially for the WBO belt. Would that give both fighters that extra motivation, Leif, coming to this fight?
Of course. I mean, it's very early in either career to be thinking about world level. I mean, as you said, at the age of Joe Joyce, it's still very early in his career. It's something I'd like to see. As I said earlier, they are the next two coming through to be the next Anthony Joshua, the next Tyson Fury. Those two are very, very, very large heavyweights. And, I mean, a world title fight against Usyk, I mean, we saw what he did to Derek Chisora. He was very, very smart, but I don't think he uses his ability that well against those kind of heavyweights, really. Yeah, I guess we'll see, really. I mean, the winner of this fight on the weekend, they will have a very, very big 2021 ahead of them. And I guess we'll just see what either promoter's got in store for them.
Yeah, I think the way they're talking, they want to jump straight in, and I can see why, because the heavyweight landscape could look it's going to be very hard to get a world title shot in the next year, maybe even year and a half, because they're going to be locked up with Fury Joshua 1, potentially Fury Joshua 2 if it does happen, and the space between those fights being very long. So for people wanting a world title shot, they might have to jump straight in, and I can see why Frank Warner want to make that fight.
Mm-hmm.
Would you think it's the right move to make, David? I know they're young in their career, but they're young, hungry, they're massive heavyweights. We don't really know what level they're at in terms of world level, but the jump up, I mean, they're hungry. I mean, why not go for it?
Yeah, I agree. I feel that more with Joyce, obviously with his age. I think that if that world title shot did come and was able to take it, he should take it, because, as you said, with Joshua and Fury will probably dominate the division now for maybe 2 or 3 years with their title fights going on. You don't know how many they're going to have, do you? So
yeah,
with Dubois, I feel like he's probably got time on his side where he could possibly get more experience and fight and wait until then to ride off into the sunset and then pick up world titles. But I don't see why not he wouldn't take it. I think what's he got to lose? I think Usyk is obviously a tremendous boxer, outboxed Derek Chisora really, but it's going to be the question if they think they can both punch and they're both tough lads. If they can land heavy on Usyk, despite the Chisora fight, there are still questions there whether he can take a big shot off a heavyweight.
Yeah, it's definitely. I won't see why not. And I'd love to see that fight. To be honest, I'd love to see it happen. But it's a long way away for now. But we'll end this bit just with our predictions. Yeah, Leif, do you want to go first?
I've seen Adam Booth on Twitter saying, "Don't show on the fence. Just go straight with your prediction. Who you're thinking?" And I don't know. Without putting any like my own personal favourite in there, I think the youth is going to play a massive factor. Dubois are only 23. I go Dubois KO. I'm not sure on what round. Early, round 5.
I think possibly if Joyce can drag it to the later rounds, like 7 or 8, possibly 9, and I think he could take the KO there. There's still questions with Dubois, and but I guess we'll see the answers to on Saturday.
Yeah, it's so hard to make one. I mean, obviously, if when he lands Dubois and it doesn't hurt him for the first time, and he's got someone coming back at him, it could be very dangerous. And David Hay was back in Joyce last week, and it changed my thoughts a bit. Oh God, I've always backed Dubois, and I think the lag head movement from Joyce might be a key factor. So I feel like Dubois can get the stoppage, not a knockout, but I think he can get a stoppage. So yeah, 2 Dubois against one Joyce here. So we'll see how that goes, but it's going to be a fantastic fight Saturday night on BT Sport.
Yeah.
Another fight on BT Sport, however, is a completely different clash of two fighters of yesteryear, 2 legends. Roy Jones Jr. versus Mike Tyson. Roy Jones Jr. retired with 66 wins and 9 losses with 47 knockouts, and world champion in 3 or 4 divisions. Was it 4 weight classes? He went up.
I know that he went from middleweight all the way up to heavyweight, didn't he?
Yeah. And then
he always said that he should have won a junior middleweight title as well, but he was outgrowing the weight, so he did always say that he wanted to win 5.
So massive pedigree on his side, and then obviously Mike Tyson being the baddest man ever to fight in a heavyweight division for me, scariest man ever. You know what I mean? It's Mike Tyson. Face tattoo, small, aggressive, knocking people out, winning world titles when he was 20. Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, one of the best ever for me. But 50 wins, 6 losses, and 44 knockouts, and they come back here for an exhibition. And I thought I'd outline what the restrictions are, because Dana White was laughing at them recently because he thinks the whole thing's laughable for starters. But the restrictions are ridiculous. There's only 2-minute rounds. There's no knockouts allowed. No headgear, and it's only 8 rounds. And there's no scoring from the judges. So for me, it just seems like it's an absolute farce. It's a money grab. But are you boys going to watch?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like if you're a boxing enthusiast, if you're passionate about boxing, even if you enjoy boxing, you can't go past this weekend and not watch this fight. I mean, for me, my personal favourite all-time, Roy Jones Jr., just the style, completely unique. No one will ever be like him. I've got to watch this fight, and I can tell you right now, I'll bet you my house on it. This is not going the distance. Someone's going to get knocked out, and it's probably going to be Mike Tyson, because how can you cage Mike Tyson? You can't. And if the beast has been woken up again, like he said, then I'm really worried for Roy Jones. I mean, just look at the shape that he's in. 54 years of age, and he's absolutely yoked. I mean, it's just crazy. I seen something earlier this morning that middleweight champion UFC, Adesanya, is that how you say his name? He's commentating. I don't know how that's come about. There's a lot of funky things going on with that fight. I mean, entertainment halfway through the event, from rappers. You've got Jake Paul boxing, Nate Robinson boxing. It's crazy, but yeah, I feel very grateful that 2 legends of sport are coming together to celebrate the careers. Maybe it's all. Is it for charity? Is it for a good cause? I'm not too sure. Yeah,
Roy Jones is Roy Jones, think, is donating his, mate. I think Tyson might be as well. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. I mean, it's past our generation when these 2 are in their primes, and for them to come together and for us to actually see them perform, I'm very grateful for it. So either way, it's going to be 8 rounds of 2 legends coming together and doing the sport a favour, really. But great entertainment. What are your thoughts, David?
I totally agree with you, mate. I'm very grateful because I was only born in 2000, so my earliest memories of Tyson was hearing how he had a great career, but he's become hittable towards the end. He obviously lost to Daniel Williams and Kevin McBride in his last 2.
Yeah.
But when this fight first got announced, I was sort of thinking that it is a bit of a farce. It's an exhibition. It's a money grab. But as it gets closer and closer, you can't help but get attracted to it because Roy Jones as well, one of the all-time greats, watched him more as I was growing up because he was slightly later. And he, to be honest, for me, I think that Roy Jones will take the win only because he's been boxing as late as 2018. He wasn't winning all the time, but I just think he'll be fresher. I think, I don't know what weight they will be coming in at. I don't know if anyone's seen anything or not yet, but I'm guessing they're going to be quite light. I think Roy Jones will be able to jig around, just walk around Tyson all night, to be honest. But I do hold my hands up and say thank you to him, though, because I never get to see Tyson fight before properly, and obviously against a great like Roy Jones, it can be a great occasion.
Yeah, I think it'll be I think it'll go the 8 rounds, and I feel like no matter how much you've trained, I mean, looks in fantastic shape, Mike Tyson. It's 8 rounds of boxing. I feel like the tank will run out early doors, maybe 3 or 4 rounds in, and then you just get Roy Jones, who's been training Chris Eubank Jr. He trains with a lot of people in the last 6 months. He's been sparring with younger fighters the whole time. He's going to be, I think he'll just be able to just dance around them all night, and he'll be coming together at the end and more of a celebration of boxing rather than a celebration of bad blood or any sort of knockouts. But still a crazy event. Crazy that BT are charging what they are charging for the pay-per-view, but never mind that. It's just a great boxing event, and I'm sure it'll get a lot of eyes on it, which is what the sport needs. Helps it gives people something to watch in this time of, I say not a lot of sport is back now, but in a time where boxing is booming at the moment, and this will help just raise the stock even more. I mean, we kind of covered the predictions there. I mean, I couldn't really care less who wins. I have no emotional feeling towards either fighter, especially in an exhibition. So I just want to see a good fight, really, and just see some good skills, and maybe just see an inkling of each of them maybe taking a hit or two, just a bit like the old days, and just give the fans something to cheer about, really, just for a bit.
What are your thoughts about Jake Paul, YouTube boxing?
Well,
for me, he had this fight against Anison Gibb, didn't he? And Anison Gibb looked terrible. It's one of the worst things I've ever seen in the ring.
Not an athlete, nothing.
Oh,
I think, yeah.
But to be fair, he did his job, didn't he? He jobbed well. And he's fighting the is it the American footballer?
Former, yeah.
Or
that was Logan.
Yeah. I'm not too sure who the fella is, to be honest, but at least he'll have a bit of athletic ability, I suppose. And he'll offer a lot more than Gibb did. But until he gets 10 fights under his belt against people who can actually fight, I'm not really interested in that, to be honest.
The only thing I'd be interested
in... I think it's a bit of a... Sorry?
You go for it.
Interrupting you. Yeah, I mean, on a whole, it's not a proper sanctioned professional event in my eyes. It's just more of an entertaining money grab, you could say. But I feel like if there was anyone else in the main event, it wouldn't be as special. I feel like I don't mind who fights underneath the main event because it's Mike Tyson and Roy Jones Jr. I'm excited to see Vidal Riley, see how he's progressing in his young career so far. But there's only about 4 fights, so it's not going to be a very, very long card, but I feel like it's supplemented in between with just entertainment. So it's like the Super Bowl of boxing, really. It's just like got loads of half-time entertainment. It's just a bit confusing, but I guess we'll see how it plays out. It's early Sunday morning.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting event. I'm not sure whether I'll stay up for it, to be honest. It's very late. And I stayed up for the Kell Brook fight, and that lasted about 10 minutes. And so I don't think I'll be staying up for this one. But, on to the last fight. I mean, when we first talked about it, I thought it wasn't really that big a fight. But looking at the but the history between the two fighters, what they've done so far, it's a good step up for Tony Yoka, who was the Olympic champion who beat Joyce, somewhat controversially in some people's eyes in 2016. But he's a huge guy and he's a massive prospect in the heavyweight division because he's 6'7", he's athletic, he moves quick, and Dave Allen still has nightmares of fighting Tony Yoka, saying he just has sledgehammers in each hand and he's just crazy powerful. And this guy's been touted as one of the best prospects with Dubois, and he is 28, but obviously he's only fought 8 times with 7 KOs. And he comes up against Christian Hammer, who has 25 wins and 6 losses. But on that list of losses is points decision losses to Ortiz and Povetkin, and he's beaten David Price by a stoppage. And obviously Fury made him retire on the stool in the 8th round before he fought Klitschko. So his pedigree is really good. And obviously he was going to fight Dave Allen in the fight camp, the one recently, and didn't come to be. But Tony Yoka, I'd say it's a really good step up for him. And just want to get your thoughts on what do you think of Tony Yoka, really? Because he's someone who's been forgotten about, really. So, David, do you want to start us off with your thoughts on him?
Yeah, mate, I think he started off, he looked really good. And obviously he was disrupted by he missed 3 drug tests, so he was banned for a year. But he looks really strong and he's got good amateur pedigree again, gold medalist in World Championship, Olympian. He beat Joyce in that, as you said, controversially, but he also beat him in the World Championships as well. Also beating Filip Hrgovic, another really good prospect along the way. So I think that there's a lot of potential there. He's ranked number 10 in the IBF, so he's not too far away from maybe pushing further on. And I think that Hammer's a good fighter. When he's fought the better heavyweights, he's fallen short. So I think Hammer could be a good stepping stone for Yoka, to be honest. Obviously, we know how hard he hits after Dave Allen, so it's his toughest fight ever. But again, with Yoka, though, he's never been he's been took further than 6 once, and that was against Dave Allen. So I suppose there's questions there, but I expect Yoka to get the job done against Hammer.
Yeah. What do you think, Leif? What do you think about the step up here? Obviously, he's 10 in the rankings. I didn't realize. So obviously, he's gonna rise up them pretty quickly, but. A stoppage win or knockout win here is gonna get him right back into contention for 2021.
Yeah, he'll shoot straight off. I mean, taking the fight against David Allen, only his fifth professional fight, was a state of intention of what his career was going to be like. He's definitely no joke. And as we were talking about in the previous podcast, I mean, the heavyweight division, the youngsters coming straight through, the prospects, it's fantastic. There's so many, such a great bunch that can be world champions in the future. Yeah, I'd like to see him fight in Britain, maybe after this one. He's only ever fought in France. Yeah, a great prospect, and I feel like he'd be too young, powerful, and hungry for Hammer, and he'll just go straight through him, and his stock will keep rising. A great young fighter. Had his troubles in the past with drug testing. I hope that doesn't come about again, because it would be a real shame. I mean, there's no place for doping in the sport, especially the heavyweights. I mean, they hit hard enough. I don't know what else you want. But yeah, he's got some impressive names on his amateur, and he will be getting on his professional resume so far. And just keeping active will do him a world of good. I really rate Tony Yoka. He's a great young prospect for the heavyweight division.
Yeah, I think he's a future world champion, if I'm being honest. But there's a lot of big fights down the line. A lot of people that are gonna have a stake their claim as well, especially once Fury and Joshua will be gone and Wilder will be gone. So there's going to be very interesting in the future. But this is a start. This is his second start for me. You know, he's had that time out the ring. Now he's really got to push on. Obviously, drugs they shouldn't be in the sport. You know, you shouldn't be boxing if you're going to be missing drugs tests. For me, that's a big thing, and hopefully that's behind him, because he's a beast. He's just a 6'7" monster who is gonna do some serious damage to every he faces. And I feel like Christian Hammer, he's gone from fighting Dave Allen and probably feeling like it was a relatively not the most dangerous fight in the world to coming up against one of the scariest prospects in the world in a much bigger guy in a fight where I think he's going to be rabbit in the headlights, to be honest. I wouldn't want to be Christian Hammer right now, I'll tell you that. But yeah, I think I'm going to, obviously Tony Yoka stoppage win or knockout win is definitely going to happen. Needs to raise his profile, get himself over to England or America as soon as possible, raise the profile again. Obviously knockouts talk, and I'm sure Eddie Hearn will be eyeing him up to getting him in with some of his heavyweights, because obviously there's plenty out there, and bigger he gets, the sooner he can get up them rankings, the sooner we see him in some bigger fights. So we'll leave that one there. That's all we've got for today's podcast. Obviously, Dubois, Joyce this weekend. Obviously, it's free on BT Sports, so nobody should be missing that. And obviously, Mike Tyson and Roy Jones Jr. early in the morning, and then obviously Tony Yoka versus Christian Hammer on Friday night. Are the 3 fights we've previewed for this week. So thanks very much, boys, for joining me again.
Nice one, mate.
And we'll be back on Monday with a review of all those fights and any others that do pop up over the weekend. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you soon.